Thank you very much, Dr. Kurupu. Good evening to all of you. And thank you very much, Dr. Kurupu, for organizing this event. And thank you very much, Dr. Niluka, under the guidance of Dr. Kurupu. Thank you very much for our audience for joining this event, just to share some understandings among us. And actually, I must, just taking a few minutes, I must make a remark of the service of our library. I'm really happy. This honestly, I'm just expressing my view because now sometimes we can see the role of the library is limited to the safeguard of books. So I think that may sometimes give some barriers to readers. But anyway, I think our library is currently guided by Dr. Kurupu. Is involved in dissemination of knowledge. I think that's how I perceive it. Dissemination of knowledge. That is the broader role of the library. So then that's why going beyond just making books and other materials available electronically and physically, going beyond that, organizing this kind of series of sessions in dissemination of knowledge, I think is a admirable effort. I must really thank you for this value addition from the library to the university system. Thank you very much. I think so. Since we are having just 1 hour, I try my best to deliver what I have planned for. I hope I should be able to do that. Before starting, I must say that I'm not going to teach. I think audience today, I think there are mostly we can see from libraries, including the Library of Colombo, and also from different faculties, those who are in the profession of researching, those who are following the reading for master's programs, and those who are in the academic field, academics. Therefore, simply, I think those who are having kind of a research the exposure. Therefore, we won't have to discuss the researching, what is researching. So we are going to understand something useful for researching today. So I'm not going to, my topic is philosophical roots of research design. I'm not going to teach you philosophy. I'm not going to teach you research design, but I'm going to share with you something to facilitate the rational choice of a research design. Because what we see in some situations is that even some researchers, because when they have done the research within a certain methodology, they carry out the methodology. So they tend to believe that anything can be researched within that particular methodological framework. Therefore, they guide others, and they sometimes commend other research in other methodologies from their perspective. Therefore, sometimes some difficult situations are created, I have observed. So such things happen, as I believe, because we may not see the the underground, or maybe underpinning philosophical roots. That's why. So we have a philosophy behind research. If you know philosophy, then you will be stronger in making a rational choice. So the choice depends on the research. So different methodologies is not simply available for the choice, right? So methodologies are there. We have to decide the most appropriate methodology for a research. So how can we select, how can we decide the most appropriate methodology? That is my session today. So I think even within the discussion, you can interrupt at any point. And I think Dr. Niluka is moderating. Even Dr. Niluka also may ask any question, stop me at any point. Even at the end, we can have a discussion if required. So research basically now is knowing a reality. Very simply, I'm not going for any the textbook definitions. As we understand, research is to know a reality, know realities. The reality is something happening around us. Realities are there in the world. So we want to understand the world. Reality. So as an example, we may observe that less female representation at higher positions in organizations. So it is some kind of a reality. Then we want to know why it happens, where it happens, how it happens. That's the knowledge we need. And sometimes most micro enterprises are commercially unsuccessful, we observe. Why it is? We should know. For policymakers, they want to know. For academics, they want to know. So why things are happening so in this world, right? So for the development, we need it. And student responsiveness at online sessions is significantly less. That's what we experience today, right? So even though we tell them that we are with you personally and you can ask any question, but even sometimes when we ask, do you understand? Still, some students don't respond. Sometimes when we say good evening, sometimes students don't respond. It happens, but there are some situations, there are very good responses. But in my experience, in many situations, even including postgraduate students, sometimes response rate is very less. Why it is? Having all these facilities, having the opportunity, why it happens? We don't know. We want to know. So then those are the realities. To know them, we need to do a research. We are researching. Right. So we are going to talk about knowing realities as research. Then I said that the choice of the research methodology is underpinned by philosophy. Philosophy is simply about our understanding of the world. Where we are, who we are, where we are, why we are, where are we going, what will happen to us. That broader understanding. Right? So then that will bring a framework for a person to see the world. They see the world from that framework. That is a philosophy. I have given some definitions and some ideas you can read. So that is the idea of philosophy, right? So therefore, philosophy drives behaviors of people. That means we all have a philosophy. That's why on a certain incident, I may come out with a kind of a idea, but another person comes out with a totally different idea on the same thing. If you take any political incident, very naturally we can see there are different views. Even on the economic development, economic crisis today, different people have different views. So the people come out with different views based on their philosophy, the way they see the world. Right? So then that's how we understand the philosophy. We all have a philosophy, and that's how our behaviors are driven. When we are doing a research, when we try to understand any social reality, we make decisions, choice decisions, and we make various research related decisions based on the way we see the world. That is our philosophy. Right. So before going ahead, I must say that when you are studying realities, there are two types of realities we can study. Natural science realities, social science realities. Something about the natural environment, maybe physics related, chemistry based, maybe biology, etc. So they are about natural phenomena. We call them natural science research. And on the other hand, it is about studying human behavior, as maybe from HR, maybe from anthropology, maybe from sociology, maybe from other managerial, from the sciences, or maybe from educational, maybe from library sciences, from different disciplines. We try to understand human behavior. They all are called social science research. Therefore, our attention is today is on social science research, right? So then let's see. When we come to when we come to discuss the philosophy behind social science research, there are some philosophical questions. Even they are also called sometimes philosophical assumptions. So that means when we try to understand the world, in other words, when we try to know the world, when we want to know the world, there are some fundamental questions or fundamental differences among people in knowing the world occurs, right? So they are identified to be ontology, epistemology, axiology, even some more human behavior, methodology. But these four are very the basic, the fundamental. Ontology, epistemology, basically, and axiology, methodology. They are about the knowledge. Right? Let's take by one. Right. What can you see on the screen? This is. It's a fish tank. It's a fish tank. Now, ontology. The ontology is about, now, the ontology is about the researcher and the phenomenon being researched. Right? Phenomenon being researched and researcher. The relationship is described as the ontology. Right? I have taken the fish tank to exemplify. Fish tank. Now, within the tank, there are fish. And there are some small plants and some maybe decorations. So then there are some places where mostly fish gather. Such the different elements within the tank, different characteristics of the tank are there. So if we are not in the fish tank, right? We are outside the fish tank. So we can see the fish tank. We can observe very clearly. We can see whole fish tank. We can see how many fish, what are the various decorations, what are the various places which always or frequently fish gather, what are the areas which normally fish don't like gathering. Like that, everything very clearly we can understand. Not only me, anybody else come and see the same thing. If there are 10 fish, everybody will come and see the 10 fish and these characteristics. Right? That is why, because tank is there independent from us. But suppose if we are a fish, what happens? If we are also a fish in the tank, can we see the whole tank? No. As a fish, I can see only what is around me. I can perceive as a fish, the tank. So that's the difference. Right. Therefore, ontology is about the relationship between the researcher and the phenomenon being or reality being researched. Right? Objectivist. That means some people believe, or sometimes we can see that the reality is there independent from the researcher. Right? Independent from the researcher, like a person independent from the fish tank. Then anybody can see the same thing. Therefore, it is very objective. It does not depend on the person to person. So we call it objectivist ontology. So ontology, if we can see a kind of a phenomenon, and if we know that research is totally independent from the phenomenon, then it's a ontology is of the positive, the objective. Say, for example, if you take the moon, and if you want to research the moon is even independent from us. NASA is studying, some Chinese astrologers may be studying, Indian astrologers may be studying, but they all see the same moon, same situations in the moon, on the moon, right? So that's we call objective. So such a research becomes objectivist. It's a knowledge, the researcher is independent from the phenomenon being researched. Let's take, on the other hand, behavior of readers in the library, right? Readers in the library. So is it different from us? No, if you are a librarian, so you are a librarian, you are also interacting with the users in the library, right? Users, that means the environment in the library, environment in the reality is created by the person. We are creating the environment. Therefore, libraries environment is librarians and students. So as a researcher, you are a part of the library. If I am doing a research, I am part of users of the library, right? So then it is like I'm a fish in the tank, right? Then can we say I am independent from the library? No. Therefore, that there we have a connection. We are involved in the reality, right? So then that is, therefore, I may express some kind of an idea about the library based on my experience, but another person from our faculty will come and experience and express in a different way. So different people, depending on their interests, their attitudes, their background, their family background, their culture, and they do various things, they will come out with different views. But they all explain what they experience. It is not untrue, but different. That is another situation happens when we try to understand the world. Therefore, when you are also part of the environment, you are not independent. Then what is that knowledge? Right? Then it has to be considered. That is, they are the two different things. When you are independent and when you are part of the environment. When you are independent, we call it objectivist ontology. When you also are part of the system, environment, then we call it, you are a subjective. You have a subjectivist ontology. The way you see is like a fish in the tank. I hope it's clear. Then another second element connected to ontology is epistemology. Okay, now we know that there's a reality. We should know. We need to know. Right. Okay, we believe either we part of the reality or we are independent. Then epistemology is about the knowledge. What kind of a knowledge we can gather in this situation? What kind of knowledge? It is connected with ontology. Say, if I know like fish tank, being an outsider, then I know that I can precisely say, this is the fish tank. This is the number of fish. This is the situation in the fish tank. I can describe. Therefore, I can say that if anybody else comes and examines the fish tank, will come out with the same thing. They can't say, when I count number of fish, 10, they can't say 11. So everybody can see the situation. Right? Therefore, knowledge is precise. Real knowledge we can gather. But on the other hand, when we believe that I am also part of the reality, like a fish in the tank, then the knowledge I gather depends on my perception, my experience, my context. Therefore, knowledge becomes subjective. So I would say something, That is the way I perceive the world. Another person comes and say, little bit different from a different angle. But that is also right. I'm also right. I can't say the other one is right. The other person is wrong. I am right. No. Everybody will come and see what they experience. Therefore, they all generate knowledge. But that knowledge is subjective. Therefore, knowledge, there are different aspects of knowledge. Therefore, we call it, there are multiple truth, multiple realities, subjective knowledge. But in the previous situation, we can see independently. Therefore, anybody comes and sees the same thing. Therefore, knowledge is subjective. There is a single reality, single truth. Whoever comes will see the same thing, like an answer to a mathematical question, right? Statistical inference. It is the same. If the data are same, answer is same. Right? That is what we call the two sides of the epistemology: objectivist and subjectivist. Axiology. Axiology is like we have value system. Value means what we believe to be good, what to be bad, what to be right, what to be wrong, what to be accepted, what not to be accepted. They are our value system based on our personal circumstances, right? So then next is, when a researcher is trying to understand the social world, can his or her personal beliefs, personal values interfere in the knowledge? Preferences, right? If the ontology is, the researcher is independent, if they say no, the personal things are not applicable, right? It is, the knowledge is observable. The situation is observable, phenomenon is very clear, independent. Therefore, we can separately identify it from the researcher, right? We call it value-free, right? Value-free knowledge. And if we believe no, in this situation, researcher is part of the context. Therefore, researcher's personal values are interfering in the knowledge. So it is subjective, therefore. Therefore, we call it value-laden. Value-laden. Therefore, we understand, okay, this knowledge is value-laden or value-free. Then methodological assumption, methodology. Methodology is about how to know the world. Now we try to see what is the world, what is the phenomenon, what is the reality. Then what is the knowledge about the reality? What kind of knowledge is there? Then how our personal values can interfere in our knowledge. Fourthly, we ask, how can we gather the knowledge? How to gather the knowledge? So how to gather the knowledge, it is about methodology. What kind of methods we should use, right? How do we know the reality? Specific way, the methods that we can use to understand our world. So I have given, maybe there are two extremes. Which factors play a role in the production of other factors? So we can see things are separately available as factors, so as some outcomes, some things are there in the environment. So we can see A and B in existence. So we can check what is the relationship between A and B. We can measure because we are independent. So we can see these things are happening in the environment. So then we can see how one factor influences the other. That is, maybe through statistics, we can see whether there is a correlation in such a situation. That is one way. Or we can say how individuals see and experience the world. So we, rather than measuring, we can see maybe sometimes we can say, if we are part of the environment, how can you explain what's happening? You can't exactly describe, but you can express your experience. Based on your experience, interpreting your experience, we can understand what's happening. Right? So we can't go and measure, but we must understand the experiences of people who are involved in the situation to understand what's happening. Say, for example, if a person is motivated highly in a certain situation, we can't say why the person is motivated. We have to talk to the person and see why the person has been motivated. Right. So that depends on the person, his experience. We have to trace his experience out, right, to understand how the person has been motivated by the situation, right? But if we understand, okay, no problem, we are independent, therefore I can see this person's motivation has been caused by different factors. So I take some factors and try to measure and say, okay, these are the factors that have influenced the motivation of this person. So methodology again connected with our ontology. So you can see now ontology, epistemology, axiology, methodology. They all are now in two streams. Okay, now that is the philosophical background underpinnings with of the research methodology. Now we see sometimes now with this, what is your response? Some people say, I want to do a quantitative study because it is more precise, something more accurate. Some people say, what do you say? Is incorrect. We can't say so. Always quantitative is accurate. Some people may say, I have heard, I want to do a qualitative study because it gives a complete explanation. Those who have done the qualitative studies may tend to say it. So, right. Oh my goodness, it is 7 o'clock. I see. Oh, 7:38. Sorry. Right. I thought I have to finish by 7. Qualitative study, because it is a complete, it gives a complete explanation. That is also incorrect to say. Some students say, I want to do mixed method study because I like learning both. They want to have 2 birds in 1 stone. Right. So that is also not right, because this is something we can see when students join some research the programs. They at the first point they say, I want to do mixed method without knowing even the research issue. Right? Without knowing research issue. I know there is a certain institution, I don't disclose the name, but certain institution is a private sector one, maybe foreign related. Don't think try to trace the institute, it doesn't matter. But I also tried to be a part at the very beginning in doing some research supervision, etc. Then I got to know that their policy is that if somebody is doing a research, there should be hypothesis, no research. That's how they believe. That is their experience. But then what happened? Then I declined. I decided not to go ahead because that is not within my preference, right? So I didn't like. But these are things happening. Then that is also incorrect. Therefore, these are incorrect. I like this method or that method or whatever. The methodology or the approach for the research totally depends on the research, the context, the research issue, the issue which you are going to study, research issue, nature of the research issue, right? Nature of the research issue. We have decided what should be the most appropriate methodology. Now, therefore, there are now we can bring all two opposing beliefs, philosophical assumptions. Reality, maybe about the relative existence, ontology. Some people believe it is independent from the researcher. Some people believe it is researcher is part of the reality. And if you talk about the epistemology knowledge, those who believe the researcher is independent, they believe, therefore, knowledge is objective. There is a single truth, single reality. Everybody should know that reality. It should be very precise, right? So that's why empirically proved knowledge. And other people who believe that they also are part of the reality, they believe knowledge is subjective. And therefore, there are multiple realities. And about the axiology, those who believe the researcher is free from the environment, then they believe, therefore, no value involvement. They don't have to talk about the value involvement of the person. But in the subjective situation, people believe that knowledge creation is interfered by personal values, therefore value laden. Therefore, methodological choices available. Methodological choices available for the first situation, that is when they believe that a person is independent from the reality, therefore knowledge is objective and there is a single truth and it's value free, then they can measure, they can calculate, they can observe, like they can do experiments, right? That is one the extreme. The other situation is when they believe knowledge is subjective, the research is part of the situation, so knowledge is subjective and no is value laden. They try to understand the world, know the world through experiences, interpreting experiences. So interpretation of experience. So this is how these philosophical assumptions of people work. Right, now I am moving on to some philosophies in knowing the world, right? Philosophies in knowing the world. That means I would say these are the kind of a clustering of these philosophical assumptions. So philosophical traditions, these are philosophical traditions of knowing the world. I would say philosophical traditions of knowing the world. Philosophical traditions, right? I just take only two. There are some even idealism, realism, idealism, even metaphysics, realism, like that. There are, if you are going to discuss, there are so many isms. But I take very clear-cut two traditions. These are the very basic, fundamental. That is, even the knowledge of these two is totally enough. Realist, relativist, right? Realist. I would say simply, realist are the people who believe that knowledge is precisely created and it is out there to be gathered, right? So the reality has an absolute existence independent from our thoughts, ideas, and even consciousness. Therefore, knowledge is objective and we must use precise tools and instruments to gather the knowledge. That is the realist world. It is basically applicable to scientific research, social science research, social science research, in natural phenomenon. If you take a river, if you take a mountain, if you take any other geographical situation, anybody can go and observe the same thing. Therefore, this kind of a realist assumption is very there. Then another tradition developed in the 20th century is that they deny that the objectivity within a particular domain and asserts that so kind of existence and existence of such an objective knowledge is denied. They say that always knowledge is interfered by the context of the person and the personal experience and the context. Within the context, the person grasps the knowledge. It is different from another person, from a different context. Therefore, the contextual involvement is very important in understanding or in knowing the world. That's the relativist. The knowledge is relative to the researcher and the researcher's context. Right? So that is the other tradition, realist and relativist. Then I will step on to paradigms, another thing you are talking about, research paradigms. Research paradigms. You may be talking about this positivist paradigm only existed till 1980s, and in 1980s, this post-positivist, anti-positivist interpretivism started coming in, something like that. Actually, what happened now, this mainstream research happened in on realist principles. They tried to see the world empirically. So this is the man, Auguste Comte. It's Auguste Comte, I have heard. Auguste Comte lived till 1857, for 59 years. He found that to understand the social world, we can use natural science research methods. That is his finding. To understand the social world, because up to that point, no precise methods were available, because people were trying to explore the natural world. But social science research didn't come out at that point in the past. So research were limited to natural science. So in understanding human behavior in social science research, then Auguste Comte expressed the opinion that scientific, that is, the research methods, research methodologies adopted in natural science research can be used to study social science research, social behavior. That approach, it became a kind of a framework, because we know that natural science research, their ontology is objective. Knowledge is single reality to be proven scientifically. Then axiology is value free. Methodology is maybe statistically supported, some surveys like observations, measurements like that. So the whole, that set of philosophical ideas was clustered as positivism. It was coined, that's the name, there's a term coined by Auguste Comte, right? That is what we call positivism. Therefore, until 1980s, the positivism dominated in social research. Right? Positivism dominated. Then in 1980s, based on this relativist tradition, it started coming in other ways of seeing the social world, right? So they became as post-positivist, anti-positivist, critical realist, something like, in different ways to see, right? So then we can take basically positivist paradigm, interpretivist paradigm. It's a kind of a framework of thinking, seeing. Up to 80s, it existed, this positivist paradigm. Still today it is continuing, but this new approach came in 1980s, interpretive paradigm, and later critical theory, and even within interpretive, it is going on constructionism, like that. There are some other different ways of seeing the world. Okay, so let's take positivism and interpretivism just to understand. If you are interested, you can read further, and you can see different isms, different frameworks with this idea. I think, I hope this explanation of these philosophical underpinnings should help you to explore more for different research paradigms. See now, both. Positivism is about measuring, basically. Measuring. The indicator measures something. Interpretism is, say, let me tell you a story. I have got a story to listen to my experience, like that. Storytelling, stories. Based on stories, we try to know the reality. based on experiences, tracing experiences, we know the reality. So that is interpretivism, positivism, interpretivism. All right. Now we come to social science research area, right? Research designs. So far, then from the explanation, you know that ontological assumption, it may be objectivist, it may be subjectivist. I hope you know it now very well. Epistemological assumption, therefore you assume there is a single reality, therefore it should be absolute truth, single truth to be gathered. Or you may believe multiple realities or subjective realities, right? So research paradigm, therefore, it becomes positivist when you take single reality. It is positivist, and otherwise it becomes interpretivist. Therefore, strategy or research, broader research methodology becomes, when you are positivist researcher, it becomes quantitative. But if you are an interpretivist researcher, it becomes qualitative. If your ontology is subjective, if your ontology is subjective, always you are on a qualitative research. If your ontology is objective, you can never do a qualitative research. Sometimes, because we have seen that some students say, I want to do a mixed method. How it becomes mixed method? Because they are conducting some surveys and using some statistics, it is quantitative. And they are doing some interviews as well and getting some ideas of people. There, because of that, they say it's qualitative. Therefore, they are combining both mixed method. So just or merely conducting interviews and gathering some data, you can't say it is qualitative. So qualitative, to be qualitative, your philosophy should be behind. When you are objectivist, your approach is deductive, otherwise inductive. Deductive means you start from a general observation, like you come to general ideas about, we call hypothesis. You hypothesize, this is happening because of this. This is happening because of this. This has a relationship with this. A has a relationship with this. C is caused by B, something like that. You believe on, based on your some gathered knowledge. Or maybe to a model. You come to a certain idea. Then after that, you gather data and you carry out the analysis to find out exactly what is happening, which hypothesis is right, which hypothesis is rejected, right? Therefore, exactly how it happens, right? Therefore, starting from general, you come to specific. That is we call deductive approach. When you are a subjectivist, your approach would be inductive, definitely. In an inductive situation, you observe something specific, right? You observe some students who are irresponsive in online studies. You observe some women not represented at some positions in organizations. Why is it? There's a specific observation. Then you carry out the research. Then you end up with saying that, okay, in this kind of situations, these kind of students may respond like this. In this kind of situations, this kind of women may not be motivated to get into these positions, something like that. So deductive is starting from general, ending up with specific. Inductive is starting with specific, ending up with general. So sometimes it's very important to say that actually we sometimes come to very difficult situations. We fall in different situations because when students make some presentations, some researchers, those who are experts in positivist paradigm, when the research, the student is from post-positivist paradigm, right, and has conducted the research based on a case, they ask, how can you generalize through one case, single case. You can't do, you have to take several cases. Otherwise, you can't generalize. So this is a wrong statement because it is about something maybe lack of or maybe misunderstanding of philosophy, right? In positivist paradigm research, we are generalizing, we call empirical generalization. We gather representative data and then we generalize to the whole population. Our finding. That is empirical generalization, but through a case, maybe a single person we can study and come out with saying that, okay, this kind of a situation, this kind of a thing can happen. We call it theoretical generalization. So generalizations are there in positivist research. It is empirical generalization. In inductive research, post-positivist research or inductive research, it is theoretical generalization. So that is also very important to be kept in mind. That happens, I think, frequent. Many situations I have come across this difficulty. So data generation in positivist research, always it goes for survey, questionnaire, because they believe that people and different phenomena is existing. Therefore, through a questionnaire, you can gather it. Through an observation, you can gather data. But if you believe on that, you can't see the situation, then you have to experience the person. Therefore, you may live with the people. Therefore, it's an ethnographic situation. You may study a case and you may interview people. Actually, yeah, it's that is data generation. Yeah. So these are different research designs. A good point came to my mind and now has gone out. Good, very important point. Right. Finally, now I'm going to show you how different research issues become a positivist or interpretive study. Actually, a research issue, sometimes by the nature of the research issue, it becomes a positive study. In my understanding, like if you are studying some kind of macro level situations, say inflation, share market, maybe market behavior, something like maybe something legal behavior, or maybe sometimes when you are studying some infant babies who can't talk, then we can't interview them. Some mentally disordered people who only we can observe, maybe can't trace what is within their mind. So we can't trace their experience, right? In such situations, necessarily it will have to be positivist paradigm. But if you see the situation where we are involved in we are interfering in the environment, we are creating the environment, then you have to be very careful. It depends on the way you ask the question. See now, example. You can see a reality like less involvement of women employees in executive capacities in organizations, as I said before. So you may ask, what are the factors determining this situation? What is behind it? Your ontology is that, okay, you can see this women behavior is there. Different factors, family background, economic situation, and different some circumstances, so some conditions exist independently on the surface. Therefore, you can see all these things as different variables, or variables, so incidents, so realities. Then what you want to do is that you want to see whether there is any relationship between these things. That's what you are asking. What question? What are the factors determining this situation? So when behind that, your belief that these conditions exist independent from you. When you believe so, you are tending to do a positive research through a survey and questionnaire. But if you want to see how this situation, because you believe that no, this situation is subjective, different, it is not a common thing. Different people believe this situation sort of create the situation depending on their circumstances, how it has happened. Therefore, you want to go to the person and talk to the person and experience the person, interpret their experience. You have to be the person and get the things out to know the reality, right? Then it becomes interpretive. Yes, I see the same reality, but the way you are questioning changing the research paradigm or research methodology. Inflation and tourism industry, as I said, inflation, tourism industry, they are all macro situation, no question they are positivist. Only it is implications on tourism industry. The unpredictability of the share market changes. Share market, if you want to study it as a market, macro level, conditions which create the unpredictability of the share market operations. So economic variables, some social variables, and different variables exist in the world. Then you want to see which variables are connected with this phenomenon. Then it is a positivist. Right? Because you believe that you can see, that point came to me. When you are doing a research, you are preparing a questionnaire. What is the understanding behind the questionnaire? So you want to understand why people are motivated, or why students are not responding, or why women are not motivated to take up higher positions. Then you give a questionnaire. You want to do a macro level research, positive research. You prepare a questionnaire. Then you ask them to respond. You gather responses. Then you execute your research and come out with a conclusion. What does it mean? You believe that you know what are the possible reasons behind this behavior, right? Because you know the world, because you are independent. So you try to bring all possibilities to the questionnaire. You ask the person to tick as applicable. But you may not know that there may be some conditions which may be there that you don't know. In that, if you believe that you don't know the whole world, then you may ask, okay, I don't know. I can't give you a questionnaire. Tell me what's happening. Then it goes to an interpretive side, right? That's why when you execute a questionnaire, behind the questionnaire, your ontology is objectivist. If you conduct interviews, that is because you want to know something you don't know. In the questionnaire, you want to know about what you know, right? So that is very important to be considered. How the investor behavior, if you are talking about the share, to understand the share market situation, investor behavior, if you talk about, then you can develop an interpretive research. Many students are not motivated by online education. You can see what are the conditions or factors influencing situation, positivist. Or you can see how student isolation, because one condition may be isolation, how it creates this problem, right? Then you take student isolation and see how it has created this situation, then it becomes interpretive. That is how we can make a choice of the research paradigm or research methodology. That brings me to the end of the session. I think I'm happy I have finished by 1928. 2 minutes more we have for any question, if you got any point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now it is open for the questions. Up to 8 p.m. we can go for the questions and answering. So anyone wish to ask any question, now you can raise.
Hello, sir. This is Sakina from library.
Hi, Sakina. Yeah, hi.
Thank you very much, sir. That's a wonderful presentation. I understood something that what I didn't understand my master.
Thanks.
I just want to ask, sir, whether we can mix it up research design in the one of research, particular research. For example, I say my research.
Yeah.
I did the aging population in public library services.
Mhm.
And I understood that when you compare with the children, the aging is lack of say they receive the service is the lack. So I need to find out. So I used first of all the questionnaires to find out the that means service interest of the aging populations. And I did the interviews of the librarians to what kind of challenges they faces when they're providing the services. So I feel there's both a mix, that means questionnaires and interviews. Can you explain the research paradigm of under this?
Your name, Shafina?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Shafina. No, actually, it's a very good question. Thank you. Yes, I think when it's a very good example, when you take your research, the theme, that is the aging population in the library staff, library service staff.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is the research focus. It is not about the role of the issues in to the library or something, like you later said something about librarian, something.
Yes, library.
Yeah. So therefore, now see, you have taken kind of a macro level situation, an aging population.
Yes.
It is not anything about personal involvement, right?
Yes.
So therefore, such a macro level, then aging population, you are not in the sense, now you are going to talk about kind of macro conditions which is prevailing in the environment. In that case, necessarily it will have to be positivist.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is about what is happening. Aging population question starts from what? What is, you want to know what is happening? What are the various the variables which are influencing this?
Yes.
Therefore, you are executing a questionnaire to understand this, to gather data is correct, to me. It's a positive research. Then, Shafina, later, what you said that
I need to find out what kind of challenges librarians face when we're providing the services. Because go to the public libraries, most of the public libraries, they are focusing mainly for the children's, but not the aging population. So is there any barriers for them, or the purposely they are avoiding? So I need to find out that one also. I need to find out from the librarian, is there any challenges?
Yeah. I think the second, second part is, Shafina, I think very simply a survey. It is not involving a very, I think, the deep analytical the processes, operations, because it is about challenges, things which are happening. They are also things out there. You can go and pick up. So that means they are independently existing from you.
Okay.
That is also positive. That is even if you conduct any, that's a very good example. Even though you conduct an interview, it doesn't mean that it is a qualitative research.
Okay.
Yeah, it is not coming within qualitative paradigm. It is just about gathering some data through interviews. That is to support your research. Therefore, it is not a mixed method. It is a research, basically a positivist research. That second part is something added to your main research is aging population. You have to see what is your focus, why this aging population has happened, or maybe what are the implications of aging population, or what are the characteristics of population, something like that. It may be within your research focus.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I hope you answered your question.
Sir, that's so that targeting second part of my objective, the targeting population very small, there's only 5. So that also depend on that qualitative, sir, the targeting.
No, that's why I said, even we have to see what is the outcome, because you are going to see what is happening. Actually, you can see it becomes a really qualitative when you question how things are happening. How things are formed in this situation, why things are happening. That means you are going underground. They are not appearing on the surface. Then it becomes a qualitative research, really interpretive paradigm. But when you ask what are the implications, what are the issues, what are the challenges, then they are there to be gathered. in that case, they come within the realist tradition, positivist research. Even though some data you gather are qualitative, qualitative, but outcome is just about describing something in the existence. Therefore, it is to me, it is a positivist research. It doesn't become a mixed method.
Okay, sir, understood clear. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Serena, thanks. Any other question? Anybody?
Others can ask questions.
Yeah.
Or you can drop your questions in the chat box as well. Then I can ask from Professor Abhay Singh.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Sure, Tilni. Yeah.
Yeah, that what you explain, is explained in Research Onion, I guess. No, sir. From the philosophy onward.
Research Onion also is a kind of a presentation of what I explained.
Okay, so can you a little bit explain from layer 1 onwards? Like, I think layer 1 is philosophy that you mentioned, right? And the layer 2 comes inductive, deductive. Can you explain a little bit the Research Onion?
Yeah, that's why I said Research Onion is about the layers. Now, this same thing I explained in a different way. Now, say first, I mean, now what I explained was that we should know, right? We should know what is your philosophy. I mean, now when in a research, let's say in a thesis, when you want to explain your methodology, justification, when you justify your methodology, then onion is useful in the sense it gives us some kind of a flow. We have to start from philosophy, then come to the approach, because the philosophy is the positivist and realist or relativist philosophy. Sorry, objectivist, objectivist, relativist or subjectivist, objectivist, realist, subjectivist or relativist, like that is a philosophy. Then approach, it comes after that, but then it is coming out of the same thing. That's why I showed you they are interconnected. When it is in one philosophy, then it becomes deductive or inductive. When it is deductive or inductive, it becomes quantitative or qualitative, like that. So I think Research Onion is kind of a instrument or the way to present these philosophical roots. Right? So Research Onion is not essential. Either you can use Research Onion as a support to explain, or you can explain your justification for the choice of the research through this sequence. Let's say first you can explain your philosophy on this phenomenon. How do you see this phenomenon, whether it is ontologically independent or dependent, independent or subjective, right? Like that. If it is, then you can come to your epistemology. Because of that, you believe that this situation we can know precisely, or this situation, because of this we can't gather a precise knowledge, but we can gather a relative knowledge, subjective knowledge, right? So then that's how you can justify. Then from tradition, you come to your paradigm, right? Positivist or post-interpretive. If it is paradigm, then you can come to methodology or approach. If the positivist, deductive. If it is anti-positivist or post-positivist, inductive. If it is deductive, methodology. Quantitative, qualitative. The same thing I explained. I think therefore in that case, Research Onion you may or may not use. Same thing is there. Research Onion is also another presentation only of the same thing, same explanation. I wonder whether I answered your question, Thilani.
Yes, sir, very much. One more question, like any research is either go under subjective or objective, no, sir?
Very good question. Now, it also depends on the research theme. Say, for example, in a research theme, sometimes you want to gather some characteristics of a certain situation, then you want to explore more about something happening within that situation. In that case, to gather the understanding, knowledge about the situation, you may conduct a survey and carry out a statistical analysis to gather the knowledge. That becomes quantitative. That is, in that part of the research is independent from the researcher. Therefore, it is positivist, right? Realist. But another part of the theme is highly subjective. You want to know a selected outcome from the first selected outcome. You want to see how it happens. You are questioning. That's why it is, if it is a qualitative research, it should come from the research question, as I explained in my presentation. It depends on the way you question, right? Then there should be some kind of a related question that brings you to the qualitative paradigm, qualitative research. Simply, otherwise you can't just add something quantitative to make a mixed method. So yes, you can have both quantitative and qualitative, but quantitative should be based on your philosophical question. You are questioning something based on your philosophy that it is something existing independent from the researcher. Then you can research that part quantitatively. If the other part, if you know that, if you believe that it is not independent, it is a very subjective situation, then you may go for a case study, right? Or you may go for a ethnographic study, right? And you may derive the knowledge. That becomes qualitative. Then your whole research we call mixed method. Okay, so otherwise, actually, I don't believe otherwise there are mixed method as a paradigm. Some textbooks say paradigm. I don't believe. It's not a paradigm, it's a mix of paradigms. It's a mix of methodologies, depending on the question. We have to identify the question going towards quantitative and qualitative. Did I answer your question, Thilani?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.